Live rolling credits. Hello, good evening, and welcome to our Sunday night special Now Debate. I'm Jared Walters, here once again with my friend from the other side. No, not the other side of this is the existence, just Pontypridd to my Rhondda. Richard Oliver, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, but I am good.
I get crap
Mad.
on these opening jokes now.
I know. That's what I was saying. I'm having a bit of I don't know what's going on with my head. But I think it might have been the fact I tried to lick a plug earlier. I wanted to get to 5D and I didn't want to wait. So, because my singing bowl's out of tune. So,
Would you like to
made my hair
talk
look,
us? Eh?
made my hair look quite full.
Yeah, it looks alright, bud. Has you got a bit of a Bart Simpson thing going on?
Yeah, that's a lockdown haircut. You know what I'm saying?
Lockdown haircut. Shears in the back garden, is it, Matt?
Yeah, normal.
Do you want to introduce tonight's show and what it's all about?
Well, it's about the show that's been on Netflix called Surviving Death. And I watched it, and I got to be honest, right? There's a lot of shows out there, right? And when they talk about especially like things like alien abduction, and they talk about mediums, and it gets pooed on a lot. And I got to be honest, Surviving Death, I thought was amazing. I thought it was just brilliant because there was parts in it that are gonna make people go, oh no, and there was parts in it that make you really think about what it's like to go through such a thing. And I thought it was just brilliant, just a brilliant show, just really clever, well put together, well documented, and we had the discussion that everything you covered in the show we have been through, and we have kind of evidence and stories, and we've investigated nearly every aspect of the show Surviving Death. So I thought, why don't we just cover it? Because we've covered so many subjects on this channel, and this is our sort of bread and butter, and I just think we need just to have that conversation, and for people to join in, see, and give their opinions and stuff. If you've seen the show, that is.
Yeah, bear in mind, guys, there will be spoilers. We'll try and give you regular reminders, but there are going to be spoilers for the show because we're going to be talking about the show in depth. I basically talk about the various things that it covers, but it has sparked an idea in the both of us to do a series or like a small mini series of shows on this channel, which we're going to do. Which I believe the name we called it was Evidence of Surviving Death.
Yeah.
And we're going to go through the different bits of evidence that we've collected that relates to, basically answering the question, do we survive death? So we'll be covering things like reincarnation. We'll be covering things like what happens when we die. We have various ghost box responses that talk about the spirit world, that talk about our interactions as humans with the spirit world, that talk about things like God, Jesus, and the kind of religions that we have on the planet that sort of give, rightly or wrongly, opinions of whatever lies beyond death, and obviously mixing in some of the research we've done of other people who have done different things, like people like Michael Newton, for example, who's done life between life hypnosis. The experiments you were talking about that took place in Switzerland, where they tried to instigate a near-death experience. So we were thinking of putting a series like that together, to show you guys and try and give you guys a bit more of an insight of some of the things we've experienced surrounding the whole prospect of the whole topic of life after death. I couldn't get my words out there. So just thought, we'll have a quick look to see if anyone is coming in here on the old chat at the moment. If you are, just let us know. Let us know your name. Any questions you have about death and the afterlife, or things we might be able to answer for you, let us know. Let your friends and family know that we are live if they have questions, and we'll be happy to answer them whilst we're on the show. So let's get this conversation started. Personally, my opinion of the show, like you just said, there are a lot of really crap paranormal and shows about mediums and that sort of things out there. And the first episode of the show was surrounding the concept of near-death experiences. So people that have had a near-death experience, or an experience where their physical body has been clinically dead, they have a memory of either being in the room or being around the place of the injured body then, or they go to another place and they have this experience, sometimes with a family member or loved one. So shall we start, through tonight, for tonight's show, should we sort of go through roughly some of the things that were covered in the show and talk about our experiences with that?
Yeah. Well, the first part of the show, with the lady who died, whilst canoeing. She was for 30 minutes. Now, I didn't find this out till I was 30, but I had my own experience, which is a bit of a sort of duality, where I was born dead. And I have very vivid memories of being very young. And I've asked lots and lots of people in this field if they've ever experienced anything similar, and they haven't, to be honest with you. But I've had so many people who have come to me who have experienced that, and the connection with spirit and the things that it's brought out in them and the abilities. And I thought to myself, it's not covered enough. It's not really, we've talked about it on the channel, but it's not really covered in the sense as it wasn't really covered, I don't believe, in the show, and it is, there's a lot of side effects to having that experience. There's the young girl who died and she painted Jesus. This and she did paintings of heaven. And there was the show that used to be on called It's a Miracle, and they covered some exquisite near-death experiences and some stories that people went through. The celebrities has been through it. There's been some influential people that's been through that experience, where they've died and they've gone somewhere. And like you said, the experiment that was done in, I think it was Switzerland, and they had 100 volunteers to be killed, basically. They give them a drug, stopped their heart, and they brought them back, and they documented what they experienced. And I think there's such a taboo on it. I think there's such a fear level on the subject that it taints it, because years ago, when we were more in touch with our spiritual selves, when we didn't have all these all this technology and everything else, it didn't seem like it was such a big deal. But now the fear factor in it, which I'm finding from a personal level, because people are coming to me, is quite something. This fear, and like I said, the side effects of going through such an experience, because as you know, Jazz, we've had people come to us for help, and they've had side effects of being in a near-death state, or being dead and being brought back to life. They have abilities, and they start to see things. And some people who have come to me haven't gone to heaven. They've gone the other way, and that experience, and how that's changed their life. And
Mm.
it's it's not touched on. It's not investigated enough in my eyes, and it is an important discovery. Because it adds to faith. It adds to faith in this question: is what is next?
It's
What's
not
your
it's not the fact that it's not investigated. It's not investigated in the right way. And I think there's overwhelming evidence of life after death. The amount of people who have had near death experiences, the amount of people who have communicated through ITC, the amount of pictures that we have with ghosts in them, the amount of paranormal stories we have going throughout history. It's not a case it's not covered enough. It's not covered in the right way. It's not. We don't ask the right questions surrounding them. And the question is, if this is possible, if this is real, what does that change? How does that impact our lives? How does that impact the people that we are and the belief systems that we have? Because the biggest thing that the biggest reason people go down this road more often than not is the death of a loved one. And that's where I suppose the taboo comes in on it, because when you grieve for the death of a loved one, you don't grieve for the loved one, you grieve for yourself. You grieve for the part of them that was with you and not the part of them that's gone. Grief in my experience, in a sense, is a very selfish thing. And when we look at it, we either look at it through the terms of having gone through a personal loss and a personal transformation, so it's kind of intangible, or we try and look at it through the eyes of the scientific. The problem is that when you do that, because a lot of this stuff defies the laws of physics, it doesn't conform to the sort of the scientific norms that we have, although that is changing, and that is changing quite rapidly, and probably has changed more in the last 10 years. You have things like, for example, the studies done by Dr. Christopher Kay, who has looked into end-of-life dreams and visions, and done it completely through medicine. You have people like experiments like the Skull Group experiments. You've only got to look at the CIA CREST database and look into psychic and remote viewing phenomena, which is obviously connected to the next part of this, the mediumship side of it, to know that the evidence out there is overwhelming. But it needs somewhere in between. There needs, when we look at this evidence, I think there needs to be a different level of thinking. There needs to be a different level of approaching it, where you factor in a way of looking at it, not so much through the eyes of science, but through the eyes of like a court of law, where you look at the evidence, but where you actually have to ask the question. I think that's the beauty of it, is it's one of those things that can mean different things to different people. And that's the weird thing. It is because a lot of like the sort of the TV shows, our news, our entertainment follows, now more than ever, follows a certain type of format. If it doesn't conform to that format, it's very hard for it to get out there unless people look at it in different ways. And that is changing. Gradually that's changing. And I think it's part of the reason why we're seeing a lot more emphasis on shows and entertainment about people with superpowers and things like this coming into the consciousness. So it's coming into our consciousness a lot more in the last 30 years. Because, when I was young, if you said you've seen a ghost, most adults would say to you, well, there's no such thing as ghosts. And anyone who was developed as a medium or reported these experiences sort of pre the X-Files generation of the 1990s would basically be frowned upon, shunned, etc., etc. It's not really until like the last 10, 15 years, probably since the turn of the millennium, that people have started to feel a lot more comfortable talking about it. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I mean, it is, it's a taboo subject. I've just recently had a loss in my life,
Mm.
and my nan, and she didn't want to make a will. because she didn't want to jinx it. And you can see that mentality, how it's changing, from
Yeah.
people I know in the circle, where that fear is decreasing. And, the evidence over the years of investigating the paranormal, because we've come across all of that, everything that we touched on in
Mm.
that show, at some point or other, we've investigated,
Mm.
even to the point of the stories with the doctor, and he was asking people who were near death and were dying, and he asked them, did they have dreams? Did they see loved
Mm.
ones? I down that road, I've asked them
Mm-hmm.
questions, and the answer was the same. The most common paranormal story in the world is after someone passes and you see him at the bottom of your bed.
Mm-hmm.
That is the most common paranormal story in the world. Now, you can't just dismiss something that three-quarters of Earth have experienced.
Great.
You know, it's in that realm.
Mm.
They did the show with the celebrity ghost stories, and the amount of famous people that's experienced the paranormal, and it's changed their lives. And I think this is where the show, for me, was brilliant.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was done. It was heartfelt, and it touched on the subjects that you like, the trance mediumship. Now, I've experienced trance mediumship. I've also caught a medium out, and they were using the trumpet. And basically, it's spirit communicate through this trumpet, and it's got two rings around it that glow in the dark. And we had to do it with the lights off. And this guy was picking it up, and they were all going, "Oh, it's moving," and he was holding it in his hand. And then I seen someone do trance mediumship, and the first time I ever saw it, which was from my teacher, bless her, she's no longer with us. When she did trance mediumship, she got up in the church and she said, "Right, I'm going to demonstrate it to you." And I saw this light, and I've told this story a couple of times on the show. And this light came in this room, and it went past me, and it enveloped her body. And as soon as it got to her head, she started speaking in this voice. And if I didn't see the color and this form, I would have been like, "Oh no, oh, this is taking a turn for the worst." Because I in my heart, at the time, I probably wouldn't have believed it. And I experienced it about 8 years later. And this woman was speaking in an independent voice, and she said that she was a nun, and she was in the war. She was in France. But this woman kept saying, she kept talking in her voice, and then going straight into this independent voice and in her voice, and she was like almost having a conversation with us and this person. And I was like, gotta be honest, right? I was like, oh no, like I said in this group, and I feel bad to this day about it, because I said I'm sorry. I said I didn't make sense to me from what I know of spirit and the paranormal and where what I've seen in communication. And I was in hospital, and I was quite ill. I'd had a severe asthma attack, and there was a very old lady in the bed next to me, and I was in A&E, and she came up with the same story. The exact word for word, same voice, same story, and it wasn't the same woman. I checked, and she said she was started talking that she was this lady in France, and she was in this war and everything, and she's exactly it. Frightened me, it freaked me out.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't cope with it, because I didn't understand if it was possession. I think it was just to get me to think about it. And this we have so many stories to back up the validity of it,
Mm-hmm.
the truth in what that show was about, surviving death. And I thought, it was such a there was points in it with sorry if this is a spoiler, right? With one family, and the one mum wanted a sign from a child, and you could see with all she wanted a real true sign, and she had a little one, And I thought, I don't know, I kind of felt it. I kind of felt it that I've been in that position where somebody's wanted a sign, and by the will of the gods, I've given it to them. And I just thought, this is an important thing. This is something
Mm-hmm.
that, and in regards to this 5D thing, that people are talking about, this woke and everything else, and all these abilities, and it's kind of the point of it, I think, is to have that reassurance that the people we lose, or even ourselves, go somewhere. They're somewhere else. They're not just gone. They just don't cease to exist. They're actually physically somewhere else. And I think, that's what I think is just so important.
I when I did there's one thing I did like on on that show where they showed the Arabic guy, and he eventually had a sign from his dad when they were doing the trance mediumship, but he actually went for a reading before that and the medium didn't connect to him, and I thought it was great they showed that because that's happened to me, and people have
Yeah,
had that where they've come to for a reading and she just for it doesn't there's no reason why it should happen, but for some reason you there's no reason like on the surface why it should happen, because I can literally like read three or four people in one, on the go, and get like this out of the four people, the third person I just got no connection with. It's just it either come out as no connection, or it'll be the complete opposite to what I pick up. It's the complete opposite to what it is, and it is. There's like a lot what it showed, and I thought was brilliant that it showed that it was that reading wasn't the right experience for that man to have. The right experience for him to have was what he had through the trance mediumship, and if he didn't have that experience with the reader, he would not have had the trance medium experience that he had throughout that. And I thought that was really good because there are different people, and it's like when they started going on to the mediumship side of it, and you see the mediums doing their readings and things, and what's always got me about the readings is the way that people disrespect them. Like I was working for a psychic line. I'm not going to name the name, but I thought they were really good, kind of morally sort of in the same place as I was. They paid reasonably well for a UK psychic line, which is bugger all, but reasonably well, considering. They were very supportive, and I kept getting these things where they were having text messages sent to them from this well-known psychic saying, "Oh, I have a loved one in spirit." And I had several people when COVID hit, bearing in mind these psychic lines are around the world, I had several people that had basically lost people due to the pandemic ring me up because they had had this text message from this psychic and wondering why they weren't getting through the psychic, they were getting through to me. Now, hundreds of people use the psychic service offered by, because what happens with the hotlines is you have a company and then they kind of carry the service for a number of other companies that are linked to psychic mediums, especially like quite famous ones, or quite well known ones. And so if that was happening to me, God knows how many other people that was happening to. And these the other thing I found, which is horrific, was the amount of people that were ringing up not to find out if their loved one was okay, but ringing up because they wanted to know how much of the inheritance they were getting, and things like that.
well,
And that really, for a good few years, that sucked the joy out of it for me. That's why I stopped doing it. And I'm very specific now about the types of readings I give and how I work, because you want to get involved in disputes like that. That's not the type of thing you want to be getting someone like a medium involved in, because it's not really the way in which this kind of works. Once you leave this physical realm, they will give they will give, if a spirit wants to give a message about that type of thing, they will give it freely. If they don't, they won't, and that's kind of the way I've played with it, because there's a lot of vindictiveness. There's a lot of people who've got addicted to it, and that's lost the meaning of it. And what I found is it's that people have got themselves stuck on that sort of side of it. And I found that obviously, since that's one of the things that I've noticed with a few of my friends that still work in this sort of way, there's less demand for psychics at the moment because of all the lockdowns and things. Why that is, I'm not entirely sure, but it's one of those knock-on effects that's been happening. And I've when someone genuinely needs it, the messages can be absolutely amazing. But what I always try and say to people is, when you have a reading, sit on it for a while. Take spend some time with it. Take heed of some of the stuff that comes through. Help it to sort of improve your life, because it's one of them things that can cause it can have some unintended side effects.
Well, I did it this Christmas, right? Because I felt like I needed, because of the lockdowns, I wasn't getting to use my mediumship as much as I would like.
No, yeah.
Yeah, so I signed up to one of these lines again, because I did it many moons ago, and I absolutely hated it. I did, out of probably upward of about 300 calls, I had 3 people asked to actually talk to spirit. The rest of them were mainly about, I'm cheating, am I going to get caught? Is my partner cheating? Is the person that I was cheating on going to come back to me? And it's soul shattering, right? It's the absolute opposite of what I learned to be a medium for. Mm-hmm. But I thought I need to practice. Same thing. Worse, in fact, absolutely worse. There was people wanted to know if other people were going to come to harm. And it had such an effect on me that I had a message from spirit. Now, they knocked a book over that fell, and somehow the 7 principles, which are part of the Spiritual National Union, fell. And as I went to look at it, my partner paused the telly, and there was a certain number. It just happened on this absolute perfect number, and it wanted me to reference the number. I referenced it, and it was a direct message about mediumship, and it was saying, "Don't lose faith, don't let it knock you, and carry on. It's just the way it is. Don't let this thing that just happened to you knock you with it." And which I thought was, that's how important it is, because that's how I was feeling knocked. I was thinking, you know what, I just don't know if this is, I don't know. I couldn't feel the joy to come back from it. And, they went out of their way to give me a message to say, look, you've got to keep in the faith, and you've got to keep putting that positivity out there and love, and, just don't let these people bring you down with it. And I thought, and, it's been that kind of synchronicity since this lockdown, and the build up to surviving death, and everything we did with paranormal scholars and everything else has just led to this point in time that these questions are coming up, and they need to be looked into. And I think that's
I'd be honest, good thing about when you mentioned doing these shows, I did find it hard. If you remember, I kind of blubbered on the phone call when you brought it up, and because it was like, do I really want to go back down this road again? Because even with the responses now, when it came through and I had those messages from my brother, I found It was back in 2019, and I was going through a lot of the stuff, a lot of the earlier sessions, and there was a lot of personal things in there. A lot of really deeply personal things in there that like rocked me to my core. And it was like he was talking about the and there's a lot of this on, if you have a look at the Conversations with Jonathan series on this channel, there's some of it is on there, but I will put more of it out as part of this upcoming series, and I want to do some videos of it on my own as well to explore it a bit more. But I remember when we were having a conversation back in 2019, and you said, "Yeah, just record a diary of how you're feeling." And I remember going back through the videos a couple of weeks ago, and I found that those diary entries, and I looked awful, because it put me in a place of like, why the hell am I here? I'm so unhappy here. Even though I was doing the things that I wanted to do, I was content in my life. There was a large part of me that was just so unhappy, and it was so profound. It was so much validating for me that I didn't want to be here anymore. I literally had a struggle each day just to want to be here. And I that took me literally up until Christmas Day of that year. And it literally was until I had to make the decision, fake it till you make it. Just start living your life day by day by day by day. And accept the fact that, you know, you've got these messages, we've been given these messages, we've had these experiences, and we're being asked to pass them on and help other people who have their experiences, and you know, we're going to come into contact with different people who, you know, are going through different things, and we're in, you know, a little did I know is obviously 2 months from just that point we were going to go into, you know, the darkness then that we'd been warned about for the last few years. So literally had a month or so to recover before everything else started going, and it's literally been like a snowball ever since. It's been constant, and it's weird because I don't know if this is the same for you, Rich, but when I look at I actually struggle with breaking it back down to the basics, because I kind of meditate every day. I've got a lot of this stuff so down into habit now that it's my mind is kind of goes like a million sort of miles an hour with it, and it's weird how you got to separate the experiencing of the personal journey of it and sort of putting the things out that can help other people with their journey with it, if that makes sense. And you know, when we look back at the different experiences we've had, like I've actually experienced trance. I've actually gone into trance and channeled a message through to someone, which was one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had. Or it was just like my mouth was moving, I could hear my voice talking, I was semi-aware of where I was, but I had no control over what was coming out. I just knew it was just coming straight out to me. And the first time that ever happened to me was the first time I ever did a clairvoyant night in front of an audience. And I brought this gentleman through, and the right side of my face just would not work. The left-hand side of my face, sorry, would not work. It was like it seized up when I was talking. Like, I couldn't even do it now if I tried, right? It was like I was talking through just a part of my mouth. And what was amazing was the person who the message was for said that the gentleman that I was bringing through had had a stroke several years before he passed, and he'd lost all feeling in that side of his face. You know, and I could not recreate that. I could not recreate that experience if I tried. I'd have absolutely no idea how to do it. It's happened to me a couple of times when it's just happened, if that makes sense.
Well, it's as you know, it's happened to me quite a few times. You know, quite a few times. I've done it. I've purposefully done it, and it's happened to me against my well, not against my will so much, but if you remember the one we did for charity, and I had to walk off because I couldn't stop my legs moving.
Mm.
And I looked back, and I was stood in front of a crowd of about 70, and I was like, oh my god, this is crazy. I couldn't stop my legs moving. And then I said, right, young boy, and they had asked him if he was going to come through, and one of his favorite things, he was a serviceman, and one of his favorite things was dancing. And they said, don't come through with a message, come through dancing. And it's little things like that. I think it's the little things like that you just take for granted when you do it so much. Like it's like even, it's even death and bereavement and stuff like that. You become a bit sensitive, desensitized to it because we deal with it so much. We're always having that conversation. We're always dealing with something in a state of bereavement in some form or another. And I think the amount of times I've done it, and when I did the scrying with the mirror, and as you know what happened when we did the case in Beda, where I got, well, for want of a better word, possessed. It's this. I mean, there's so much, and I think with that, in regards to your message from your brother, and this is the message I get from a lot of people. This is why we had a bit of not a clash on it, but that information can be addictive, and it can be, it's a hard thing to get let go, because as we know, we're dealing with this grief. You can grieve in the wrong way. You can grieve in a really harmful way.
I never found it addictive per se, because I've always, like, with the sense of doing sessions, because I've always looked at it as in, like, just do the sessions when they came around. I think I wouldn't personally say I was addicted to it. I feel that there was so much happening around me at that time. I was almost like I was looking too hard for answers, in a sense. I was overwhelmed by it. When I look back on them now, when I look at what was actually said, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it was a strange thing to go through. It didn't feel like addiction to me. It didn't feel like addiction. But whether you would classify it as addiction or not, I don't know. But it didn't feel like addiction to me. It felt like I needed to know. I needed to know what was said and what was going on, because it felt there were so many pieces coming in at once. I had no idea what was happening to me and how to sort of process it and what I should be doing with it, because it felt as when I was actually having those messages, it was changing me on a fundamental level. It was like it was making me look at the world a different way. So the world that before I went through that experience, and I think that's why it took me close to a breakdown, was because the world just didn't make sense to me, and it's because I didn't make sense to myself, and it felt as if like there's so many things sort of wrapped up in it, so many different experiences I'd had over the 18 years since my brother had passed away, and I'd always wondered, like, I'd never felt it was because I went through the grief process for a good 5 years, and I was at peace with my brother. I had worked with him mediumistically before transcribing those messages properly for a good 6 years, and that was several, hundreds and hundreds of readings, dozens and dozens of shows that we've done, on YouTube, and obviously doing things online, and obviously going to actual shows, investigations. I was comfortable working with him. It was the realization of having that conversation with him directly. I think there's certain levels where you can kind of have it and know it sort of intellectually, but then there are other levels where where you really know it and you really feel it, and that goes beyond anything that you could sort of comprehend or explain to another person, how that feels or what it. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I think obviously, because you transcribed the messages, it had a different sense for you,
Yeah,
right? Outside point of view from myself, I perceived it differently.
yeah,
And as I was the sort of air of caution, and I was like, "Oh, right." And I think, it's like every subject you've investigated, that was in that show. There's things that it brings up are hard to comprehend. And I know this, as you said from the lines, people get addicted to it. They get addicted to that. Don't
yeah,
have to answer their own questions because the answers they're seeking, they believe are somewhere else, and they can come to them. You've got these arguments now. You've got these like turf wars now on YouTube between, Cody IT and Paranormal,
yeah.
and it's like, what are you doing? I mean, a good example. I seen that, that one we were just discussing now. After afterlife or something, before life, spiritual sessions or something is called. And I watched it just now, and I was like, wow, that is balmy. I'm sorry, as much as I love the balmy, right? I'm a massive fan of it. That was even balmy for my standards, and it was. I'm sorry. If any of you guys see, I'm sure it's called Afterlife to Before Life, or I can't think of the blinking name
Send
of
me
it.
the link.
Something
I'll put
spiritual.
I'll put it in the description below.
Right, I'll send you a link. I did. It's on Messenger.
Ah,
I
you
think.
sent me the link. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just like, this.
Do you
It's
know
like
what
I
it
said
was
at
for
the beginning.
me? Sorry to cut you off. Do you know what it was? It's just dawned on me. I felt I had to do it. I felt like I had to do it within a certain time, or I felt rushed to do it. I didn't realise that I could process this information in my own time and still carry on living my life. I think I got kind
Hmm.
of like bogged down with it rather than addicted. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah, I mean, I was just like because I'd seen it in the church, and
Mm.
I'd seen it, in the church for a long time, and I've done it, and I've had people that have got, addicted to me giving them messages, and it was like, we do aftercare and it's counselling after they've
Mm.
experienced something paranormal, and you've got to keep reassuring, and I think more in the sense of that this we all I have a longing to hear from the people I care about,
Yeah.
right? I have a longing to get, I've had contact with the people I care about,
Yeah.
and it can get overrid by your contact, right? So like it's like everything becomes about who you speak to,
Mm.
and then it don't think about anybody else wanting a message. And I think,
Mm.
and it's the same with seeking validation that the loved one is there.
Yes.
There was people there who were having, you might have the subtlest and most understated experience, but the complexities of bringing you that experience through the paranormal, through spiritual means is quite. I don't think people really understand how much effort and the timing of it,
Mm.
the time that your point in time, your mindset, everything has to be taken into account. It's not just like you're gonna go and your nan or your bamp or a child or their favorite object is all of a sudden gonna apport out of the ceiling and land in your lap in front of a crowd and it's filmed. If that is a, a once in a lifetime thing,
Mm.
you know, I just the smell or the sense or people get a feather
Mm.
or together there's different things happen, and I think people just take it for granted and they don't. it's hard to appreciate when you feel like your heart is broken. And I think that can get you to a funny place. That
Yeah,
can get you funny place.
I agree
I've
with
been
that.
there. I've
Yeah,
had
I
it.
agree with that.
When I was in the church, I experienced it from my own. I lost a person that I idolized. I absolutely worship hero. They were the person everything. And I got the messages I had. I found myself longing for more. I found myself longing for more and more. And I thought, wait there, what I just experienced there is undeniable. The message I had from a person that knows apps couldn't didn't even have like an Android phone, so they couldn't research it. They didn't have a computer. They weren't computer literate. They could just about work a wireless to put a meditation CD on, and they giving me information that me and three other people knew in the world.
Mm.
And I had to sit back and think, hang about, that is incredible. That is like that's world changing. What this person just told me about the person I love. And it's like it can get to that point where you know you, you just you can't understand how technical and how you know we're talking about quantum physics and stuff now. We're talking about just to get you the simplest message. The factors that have to go into that are you can't fathom them. And and it like this, it's the same with the lines. Like you said, you're giving a message that is life changing, and they're like, no, that's not what I wanted. And you get that person that comes to you for a reading, and they're like, I want to speak to this person specifically.
Mm.
But what they don't think about is that person might not be able to speak.
Mm.
They might feel it's emotional. They might be, in a completely different mindset to what you knew them as.
Mm.
And they might have an enlightening understanding that if they come through and tell you that, you're not going to appreciate it, or you're not going to take that information and do any good with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big. You can't really tell that to someone who's grieving, or if they're not grieving, they're just looking for something to better their lives. It's such a this. Everybody just looks at this paranormal, and they see people running around, and they get the person standing on the bottom of the corridor, and you get the lights flashing, you got the ghost box saying something important. There's so much more to it. There is so much more to being any, anything to do with spirituality or the paranormal. It is it's really complex. It's
And I
not
think
just like
I think
yeah.
that's
It's
what the
not
show, the Surviving Death, what that actually captured that really well. It made it very
yeah.
simple, but it's like the healer, the blonde lady who was doing the healing on the guy, and he had issues with his, I think it was like issues with his head, and you could tell when all she does is to literally like sort of put her hands on this guy's head, and she's channeling this other doctor, and her voice is completely different, and and the change in him after he has the session with her.
Well, another example. I personally, and I have a scientific mind, right? I really do. As much as I have a spiritual one, I have a scientific one, and I've had healing, and I had healing on a problem I have that was so bad, it was affecting my day-to-day life,
Mm-hmm.
and to the point it was crippling me. And I had healing, and I was like, oh, go on, and I'll give it a go. And I was like, and it lasted for almost 18 months. And it never really, to tell you the truth, ever played up like it did before that moment in time. I have to take medication for it, but which does help, but nothing ever made it just go like healing did.
Mm.
and do you know what? It took me months to get my head around it. And I would try and cause it to like play up, and I'd be like, oh, this is not right, this is not right, this is not right. And it stopped me going to stay healthy and keep fit. And this, and it blew my mind. It blew my mind. That's what I mean. This is why I thought when I seen the show Surviving Death, I thought we've covered everything that show was covered.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I wanted, it's been one of my dreams to have a spiritual and paranormal centre in South Wales that people can come and talk about, ask the questions, deal with bereavement, meet others who are going through the same boat, talk about spirituality, deal with development, have the questions, and the right people there to answer them. It's been my dream, and that show spurred me on to try and make that dream a reality, because I think it's so important. I think it's just like there's everything we've covered in this, Jazz. Everything on that show we have covered at some point, even to reincarnation, to everything, every aspect of our show. We've got something to say that's what we encountered. We tried to debunk it, and that's the conclusion we were left with.
Well, I've actually had regression hypnosis. I've actually gone into regression and actually had that experience. We have obviously investigated cases of reincarnation, most notable being the Amy and Alice one that we did. We have ghost box responses where it talks about, I know it talks about my former lives. I know it talks about my brother's former lives. I don't know if we've had anything on yours. I'm not entirely sure. But I know we've had responses that have talked about that. I've actually experienced. We've both had experiences of recognizing people from our former lives that we've known or met before, and as we go through and do when we talk to different people on the now debates and things that we've or our investigations or different things, we've found people have crossed our path, and there's a connection there that we've known them from before. And this is the thing is, I remember when we had Keith Surtees, who's a medium, come on the show last year, and the story that he shared about his past life was absolute. Guys, check out that video, Keith Surtees. I'll put a link to it in the description below. But that video, the experience he shares towards the end of that video is absolutely, it was something to behold. It was something to behold, and it's one of those things. Past lives for me has been a big one I've had to explore over many years, to make sense, because I've had dreams of my past lives as well, where I've actually dreamt certain things, and they came out, and I've been able to validate them. When I had the regression hypnosis, I actually found the church in Louisiana that I used to worship at. I did. And I had that regression hypnosis 2009, so about 12 years ago. I did. And it took me through several lifetimes. I can't remember all of the ones now that they took me through. The one I do remember was, it was a really difficult lifetime, and I ended up getting shot on a horse. It was quite a strange experience, actually, because I'm lying back in a chair like this, and I'm in like a hypnotic state, which is basically just like a deep meditative state. And I'm sort of like, so she takes me forward to that lifetime. She goes, I want to take you to the point you've died. And I could see this thing sort of bobbing up and down in front of me. And I'm thinking, what the friggin' hell is this? Like, and I realised it's the back of an horse. It's the horse's head bobbing up and down in front of me. Like, and I'm like, I'm on a horse. I could feel the horse underneath me and everything then. And the picture became clearer and clearer and clearer. And I heard the gunshot, and that was it. I was dead. I literally was on the floor, and I was stood next to my body, looking down at my body with a hole in his head.
What was the lady's name that did the past life regression on the show?
Deborah. I don't know her surname. Deborah. I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to look. It'll be on the It'll be on the playlists.
Well, she said that she picked up that I was a World War II pilot, I believe.
Yeah.
And I didn't figure out the time because my partner messaged me, and I actually have, and this is as far as I have like a clothes problem anyway, right? I just love my clothes, but one of my main things is jackets, and one of my worst things is aviator jackets, flyboy jackets. I have four, I think. Well, I had four. I make them more than that, actually, and and I don't know what it is, and I want to get an authentic real one, and just didn't think of it, and I got this absolutely terrifying fear of flying, and the last time I was on a plane, and I'm obviously in the process of finding out if I have PTSD. And the last time I was on a plane was the most extraordinary and one of the worst moments of my life. And it progressively got worse, but I couldn't close my eyes because when I closed my eyes, the plane was either spinning round that way or doing a loop de loop. And if I opened my eyes, I could literally physically see the wings going boom, and the engines coming off and stuff. And oh my God, the state of me. And when she said it, I was like, yeah. And it was only after I actually sat back and thought about it, I thought, Christ, yeah. And I've actually had that dream. So there's so much that there's so much that we can sort of back up that show. And I thought that's something, you know?
Definitely. Well, we're going to put it into a series of videos where we're going to show the different bits of evidence and talk about it, and talk about what it means, talk about what it represents, talk about all the different things that that it can show. And at the end, the one thing would be kind of cool is if you guys have any questions that come from these videos, we can always follow them up and keep it as a little series. But we're going to call it evidence of surviving death. It is, and it's just going to be a short series on this channel of several videos that's going to talk about the different things that were in the show and the evidence that we have that talks about it. Some of it will be direct evidence, some of it will be stories, because I don't really have any evidence of us doing trance, unfortunately, unless we end up having to try it as an experiment or something. I don't know, but it's not something that if something like that happens to me, I'd like to go through it naturally, personally. I have had it happen to me in the past, but I don't think we've ever had anything on camera. Oh, we do have one of our investigators, actually, who did do it. We'll have to see if we can get permission to use it. Because we did have an investigator of ours who did go through trance at one of our expeditions to Castle Cork, or the area around Castle Cork, if you remember. I forgot about that. I forgot about that. Yeah. So yeah. Joe, I'd forget what we've got because there's so much over the course of the years.
I know, that's the thing. I mean, it's the same with in the show. This is a spoiler alert. Where the woman asks her mum to send her the bird, and it's a specific bird, and it happened, which I thought was that was beautiful. I mean, because I witnessed that myself, and I've experienced it. I know people who asked for a specific sign, and I've been privy enough to witness that sign, and I've had that very thing happen to myself. I don't have a record, but it happened to me, and this everything that show talked about. I think somewhere in there we have something.
I have a video of us having certain signs. There's one where my phone had a folder created on the desktop, and it said I am the most beautiful person in the eye on the way to a case. My phone like literally wrote on its own. So we've had little things like that where we've documented it. You know, there's literally sort of loads of things that we can cover on the aspects of life after death. We haven't it. Well, I've transcribed it today, and I'd like to show it as part of a series. Because I know a few people have asked for it, where we actually did an interview. I read you the responses to that. We actually did an interview with my brother. We did it in your house one weekend, and the responses in there are quite profound to show. They are. So I would definitely like to add that set of responses into it, because I think that will give people some hope and some context into, because we asked him things like what happens when you die, can spirits see the future. I think we asked him about like a general message, like about being guided through life, what people normally experience. There's an EVP on that. When you ask what do people normally experience when they die, and the EVP says very clearly God's love.
I know. So I mean, some of the spirit box responses.
That wasn't a spirit box responses, but that was an EVP.
Oh, it was an EVP. That was all. I mean, the EVPs we get just doing shows like this. I mean, we've had live guests on, and some of the EVPs. I mean, if you watch the Ghost of Karma main one we did with Kent, I mean, that's incredible, and we've had them throughout this process of interviewing people and having guests on the show. And yeah, the EVPs and spiritual box sessions we've done have been quite something in regards to questions we've asked. They have been bigly world changing in my eyes. As for as long as I was like, I was a bit skeptical about it, but the more, compared to some of the stuff that I've seen today in question, with that, this gentleman did a spiritual box session with Jesus. I have got to be honest, I cried. Not tears of joy or sadness, or laughter, because I've never seen it. I couldn't believe that this poor gentleman, bless his heart, right? I can't, I can't, I've got to shut it up my mind because I'll just start laughing. I mean, bless him. I mean, well, he's got a massive following, and good luck to him. But I mean, wow, just wow. It's a shame, really, but people take it. It's like anything, it's even like religion. They take it to a level that is just, it's gobsmacking, and you're like, that's not helping. And I'd like to think, and the para peeps watching now, and I'd like to think that we try and do it as honestly as we can.
Yeah.
We try and do it as honestly as we can, even with our responses. We've said like we don't know, we don't know. We don't know, like we said, we don't know if there's a bunch of guys who have hacked into our system and are just talking to us and they're giggling their bits off. Like, we don't know. You can't deny the spiritual message in it.
How on earth they can do that when we do ghost box sessions with no internet and things? I have no idea.
Oh no, I'm just saying. We've been
that session that we, and there's another video about this coming out this week. That session we had about the US election just before it went down, that has no internet. I don't even know if that tablet is connected to the internet, is it? The one you're using?
Yeah, it does connect to the internet, but that app doesn't connect to the internet. It's not. It's just it's just the app. It's just the sound bank on the app.
It's stuff that came out with is just, well, it was everything it said basically has come true.
Everything it said has come true. It hasn't missed a beat.
No,
I mean, you could. It's not even like and I've said this, and I've been honest, and I said, yeah, that's a bit open to interpretation. That sounds a bit gobbledygook. It's not even in that league,
No.
Jen, because the fluidity of the message in regards to the subject, it's bang, 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 step by step by step by
Was that
step.
one that comes through in the investigation that we did, the Q3, where it was 30 different people? Then it because I remember when I translated it, I couldn't understand what the hell is COVID, and this is back in 2018, and we put that out last year just as the COVID situation broke. But it was like, what the hell does that mean? I don't understand. As I said, is this some sort of Betamax video recorder or something? What is it? Obviously, I didn't
Yeah.
think of it as, what it turned out to be, but that session scared the hell out of people. And there's no internet there. There was no internet anywhere during that. Not even 5G. You could we tried streaming live from that, and you can look at the lives. I think the lives from that investigation are still on this channel, and they are choppy as hell.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. I mean, guys, we doing these videos for you to help, right? Because we've been through this. This channel isn't a hobby, or it isn't just, it's our lives. We live this life,
Mm.
We live the paranormal. We help people. We investigate the paranormal. I've had people who have messaged me who I've tried with all my might to guide and help, and that was the reason behind the videos we put on there about the pendulum work and
Mm.
where to start and a few more. And Jazz is gonna
Med-
do like you
you
said.
got meditation one coming soon, but that's going to be good.
I'm gonna try and show you how to meditate because a lot of people say they can't. So it's an important thing. Not it's important to know how to meditate. I know people who've struggled ridiculously with meditation and they've became incredible voices for spirit, and they ambassadors for it. So it's not the be all and end all. It just helps in regard, because what will happen, and this is I this is my opinion, but what will happen if you take this road, it brings up a lot about us personally. It brings up about you as an individual. And meditation really does help with that because it gives you the time to focus inwardly and look at your subconscious and ask and have that conversation. And I'll discuss it in a video, but it's just a really helpful tool. If you're ever feeling a bit like discombobulated, you can just sit there, chill out, and it's a good tool to have in your arsenal. So yeah, that's going to be on the videos, but hopefully we can back up. I feel like it's needed to back up that show because I think that show, like I said in the beginning, was splendid and it
Mm.
was needed. Well
I
done, because
agree.
you see the UFO abduction ones, bless them. Oh
Mm.
my God. These people that did genuinely, they've gone through something like, and the way they portray it is awful.
Mm.
You know, I've seen people, ridicule the people on these shows because of the way the production company or the host has portrayed them. And I gotta be honest, I didn't feel like that happened with that show.
No, it
I didn't
didn't.
feel
It
like,
didn't.
even when it was in the bazaar.
Yeah. What was your view on ectoplasm then? Because when I was watching that bit where they were looking at like there was objects that like formed like in molds, and one was like a child's hand, and the other was like a child's foot, and they said that like the people who were doing this experiment were basically scientists in their field, and the only way they could explain it as not being paranormal is if the medium basically unstrapped himself, found a child, stuck a child's foot in the mold, stuck a child's hand in the mold, put it back whilst these six people were actually looking at him.
Well,
So in other words, it's not that, it's obviously paranormal, but that's one thing I've not experienced. I've never experienced ectoplasm.
I've I've seen. I think I'd like to say I've seen every form of manifestation that has ever been documented, except for ectoplasm in regards to mediumship. I had someone said they were going to do it. I've never understood why it has to be in pitch darkness. There is like in the show, the person who's been doing it for 30 odd years could do it with red light, right? A lot of the evidence I've looked at from the past in regards to Edison and all these different people that did look into it is absolute nonsense, to tell you the truth. Because one, if a light shines on it, it goes back in the medium and it can cause internal bleeding, right? And as far as I'm concerned, on the conversations I've had with Spirit, and I've had some conversations with Spirit, he said it's not true. They wouldn't cause harm. Possession could cause harm, but that is a different thing. That's a different kind of ball game altogether, right? It's so rare. You know, you've got more chance of kicking a moon rock. You know, it's I just don't find it. I think it was easier to do in the past, right? And it was easier to manipulate, and it was a bit of a magic show. And today, I just don't understand the concept of it. When you have independent writing, which I've seen somebody write with their wrong hand in handwriting that isn't theirs. I've seen Spirit use someone's voice. I've seen Apple. Yeah, automatic writing. I've seen apports. I've physically seen apports on several. You know, there's a sound that comes with it. It's not just because the thing, you've got to understand, the object is appearing at the speed of light. So it goes, it makes a noise as it enters our world. Like it's like a, it's the weirdest thing. There's a flash with it and everything. It's bizarre. And, you know, all these things, and then coming out of someone's nose is smoke, and it's just your head. It just seems, on a spiritual level, a bit ridiculous. Like, I can't imagine, like, somebody...
They talk about it. They don't actually demonstrate it in the show, though, do they? They don't show ectoplasm in the show. Did I miss that part, or...?
Oh, they don't show... I mean, I've seen handprints from Spirit, and I've actually seen footprints. Now, the crazy thing is, it's not sweat that causes that hand, right? It is in the basic sense of the word, ectoplasm, right? It's spiritual. It's the stuff that is in between us and energy. You know, it's almost plasma, if you like. And I've seen footprints appear on a floor, and they're bare footprints, and they're not wet footprints. It's not water. Because then, you know, it's spiritual energy, and I've seen that, which you could basically class as ectoplasm if you want to go down that road. But the thing that these mediums with the heads coming out of their ears, and like I said, you know, nanny gene coming out of someone's nostril, it just seems it just borders on the pointless and a bit bizarre, and it causes the medium harm, and it can't be done in the light, which I'm always dubious about. I've always been dubious about it. It has to be done in pitch blackness.
What would convince you that ectoplasm? Because the point was that it reacts to the light or something they were trying to explain in the show. That it was quite good to actually explore something that even we are skeptical about. You know, I've not seen anything to convince me that it's real, but I've not seen anything to convince me it's not either. If that makes sense, I'm kind of I've not sort of really thought about it, but. I it's one of those. It's like I'd have to be in a position to like experience it to believe it.
Well, I mean, if you look at the Skull Group experiments, right, where they wrote on film, right, and they had people from the Magic Circle. I think it was CIA. They had psychologists, doctors, you name it. It was unexplainable. Couldn't be debunked. Unexplainable. They said we don't know what they're doing. And, you know, they were writing on film. And as you've seen in the show, another spoiler alert, they basically, with the ghost writing, where they were using a Polaroid camera. And that, you know, you're not seeing that with the naked eye. It's only appearing on the camera, right? So, and they were writing yes and no, and that conversation. I looked into that case quite vigorously, and it's like the Rain Man. I looked into that case with the Rain Man, and that they put in jail. They put him in jail because they were so frightened of him. It wasn't just the police and his own family. There was other forces at work, and they put him in prison because they didn't know what to do with him. He hadn't done anything wrong, and there's points that are, I tell you, even beyond what we've seen. But the ectoplasm, I've never, like I said, in all the years, and I've tried to watch it and I've tried to be part of it, and just seems pointless. I've never seen anything that sort of goes, I go, right, that could be. I can't dismiss that, because everything I've seen has just been either photographs, cotton wool, or cloth, and cheesecloth and stuff like that, and it's just the point of it, pitch blackness. It's like it just seems a bit nonsensical to do it. There's other way better ways and means and forms of communication that are easier, less harmful, and more believable. That's my opinion on it, anyway.
Right, well, so guys, keep a lookout for. We're going to be live on Wednesday with what looks like is I think it's Sam Barrett. She was the medium for Lainey and Ben. Lainey and Ben came on the show a couple of weeks back regarding the paranormal activities they have been documenting in their house, and the psychic of which they enlisted in one of their videos, Sam, is going to be coming on the show and talking to us on Wednesday about her experiences, as she is self-taught by spirit and has come on quite a significant journey over the last couple of months, and she's going to be telling us all about that journey. We are going to be putting the session out there. There's a couple of news videos that we've got coming up and some other sessions that we want to put up. And we're probably going to be going live next Sunday, but keep an eye out for the channel whether or not this materializes just yet, because there's a lot going on. Because there's we're probably going to be following a lot of the events that's going to be happening in the world if some of the upcoming sessions we're putting out are anything to go by. What do you reckon, Rich?
Yeah, that's a given, but that is it. I mean, there's a lot going on in the world at the moment, and
we are trying to put our website together to get that finished and finalized for you guys. We're hoping to have some news on that hopefully by the beginning of February. So by the end of this week, hopefully we'll have some news on the website that you guys will be able to visit it, and it'll be updated with some new things. Any other updates that you want to give before we finish tonight's show, my friend?
I can't think of any, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just we're sort of going with the flow at the minute. I mean, there's stuff coming in. I think it's just important to have this conversation, and I think for you, this is going to be another telling year, 2021, and there's a lot of information being put out there at the moment, right, that doesn't actually lead anywhere, right, and it just it sort of gets away with flights of fancy, and unfortunately people are really believing it. And I'd be guilty of wanting to see this world become a better place. I'm not going to say I haven't, right? And some of it I've been caught up in, because I thought, that'd be great to see that, but it hasn't panned out. So there's other ways in, and I think this is what this is sort of the direction we're going to try and take things in, and try and be a bit more guidance and a bit more like honesty, and hopefully show some truth in that, and hopefully we'll get somewhere.
I hope so. As I said to you, it's this one's going to be quite difficult for me to talk about, but it's got to be done. Done. Well, thank you guys for joining us for tonight's show. We will be back in the week, definitely Wednesday, and We're looking to have, when you're looking to have the meditation video out by, Richard?
Hopefully Saturday, if all goes according.
Next Saturday sounds good. It is.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out, guys. Share the videos around. We thank you to everyone who took part in the chat, and we'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care.
Love and light, para peeps. See you in the next video.